so that they can see the rest of the training. So thank you very much for sharing. I do appreciate that. So the next thing, if I can get it, there we go. We're just going to kind of go over some volunteer basics tonight. So what I want to first talk about, some of you have already had a chance to enroll on the new 4-H Online 2.0. So what we have seen on 4-H Online 2.0 is it seems to be very much more user-friendly than the original version, and we really like that. From the administrative point of view, there are a lot of improvements. There are a lot of things that are much better about this system that you guys will probably never see. But from our end, it's going to make life a whole lot easier. On your end, there are also going to be some nice improvements. The important thing to know about the new version right now is that it's still being built, right? In fact, Emily just saw a new button that had been added today because we didn't have add animals in yet, and that option appeared today. So as we move through this registration period, they're going to add the features kind of in order of importance. They're trying to get the most important things in there first that we need to just get registration done and get going. So for instance, probably one of the last things we'll see added is a button that will give us a portal from 4-H Online to fair entry, right? But we don't need fair entry until fair time. So that will probably come later. But that is something I'm really excited about because it means it's going to be a lot less confusing to the user. It's still going to technically be a separate site, but the portal will be right there, so you won't have to be fumbling around and finding where you're supposed to go, and it'll make it a lot more sense, especially to new families. So as club leaders, especially when you guys are helping your 4-H families, the folks that are in your clubs or the folks that are in your activities, when they have questions, you're kind of that first line of defense, right? So you see them more often than we do here in the office. So it's going to be a lot easier for them and a lot easier for you to help them when everything is kind of in that one spot. So we're very excited about that. So the first thing and most important thing tonight, if you guys have not yet gone on and started the registration process, and most of you have not, because we looked through the list of who was expected to come tonight. So most of you have not. So most of you probably need this information. So we're going to kind of go through. Some of you, a couple of you have already done this. So I apologize if this is a little redundant for some of you. So let's see, Emily, I need to, how do I get back to the screen I need? Right here. Aha, okay. So I pulled up my husband's profile to kind of go through and give you an idea. So I'm not going to go through step by step here. We did have a training opportunity last week for leaders to come in. But I think what we found is it is, like I said, pretty user friendly. So when you get here, it's not going to be hard. So you log in, the website is up here. It's v2.4honline.com. So it's the same except with that v2 dot in front. All right, and your login information will be the same as it was before. Most things have migrated over from the original version. Okay, so most of your basic stuff should be there, but you will need to fill in anything that's in red that says required. Okay, so like I said, I kind of already went through Tom's. I'm going to just show you real quick. So all of the things will be listed, all the contacts up here. all the consents. So that for adult volunteers, that will be the adult behavioral expectations, and all of these other questions that you need to verify. So you can see he has accepted that. When you initially enroll, it'll show you the whole thing so you can read it, right? And it'll ask you for a signature, and an electronic signature is just as good as a written signature here. So you'll just type in your signature, all the vehicle stuff, and the signature. Okay, let's go to trainings real quick. What is that? Why is that there? Is that my training? Okay, so if I go back to member list, right? Okay, so you can see I've enrolled him, or he's enrolled everything except the trainings. So we're going to go through this. So you will have already had it. I wanted to talk. Some of you may not know, in a former life, I was a child protection caseworker. So youth safety is really important to me. So I do like to kind of hit that hard. So we're gonna do this. But when you go to the training, it's going to come up like this. So you're going to see this, and it is, so those of you that have started, the training it's fixed now. So earlier last week when people came in, this was not working correctly, but that is working now. Do I click the register, right? No, that is not it. Right here? Okay, so youth safety and reporting child abuse. All right, so you're going to click that. It's required. You click here to launch. Is the volume going to come up across in here? Can you guys see it? Okay. So you can't hear that. All right, there's a way to do it. I just don't know what it is. So we're going to scroll down, if it'll let me. Okay, we're just going to go through the quiz part. What I'd like for you all to do, you're going to have to do it anyway, is go on your own registration and go through and listen to the video and all of the information. But like I said, this stuff is really important to me. I wanted to go through these questions so that I know you've looked at this and know the answers to these. So the first question, who is required by Indiana law and Purdue policy to report suspected child abuse? Any child that witnesses the abuse or neglect, anybody over 18 who has reason to believe a child has been a victim of abuse or neglect, the abuse neglected child, or no one. It's best to stay out of it. I think, other than the fact that common sense would lead you to the second one, it is, first of all, Indiana law. Anyone 18 and over who believes a child has been a victim of abuse or neglect is required to report abuse or neglect. And I'll share with you that phone number at the end so that you know that. Okay. All right. So when should you report suspicions of child abuse and neglect? So it gives you some answers here, and immediately, right? So as soon as is possible for you. If you suspect that, if you see something, if that child's in immediate danger, call 911, right? Because you certainly don't want anything happening to that child. But if it's not an immediate danger, get to the phone when you can, as soon as you can, and make that report. One thing to know about reporting in Indiana, it is anonymous if you choose to be anonymous. So you can call the abuse hotline number and you won't have to give your name. Now, I will tell you, as I mentioned, as a former child protection caseworker, it's more helpful if you do, because then then they can contact you and get a little more details if they need, or exactly how you came to your information, right? So if you feel comfortable, definitely please give your information so that they can get with you. But the important thing about that is you don't have to if you don't feel comfortable doing that. And there may be a situation where you don't. Okay, this question, you're only required by law to report to your immediate supervisor if you have suspicions of child abuse or neglect. That is false, because you still fall under that requirement by state law to report. So a good example of this is I would like, as the educator over the 4-H program, if you have any suspicions of an abuse or neglect, if you want to come and share that with me, then I can work with you to make sure that gets reported. And for example, when I was working in schools as a school counselor, teachers were under the same, right? They, as individuals, are required to report to state, but as procedure in a school building, they would come to me as the counselor and report that. And oftentimes what I would do is we would sit together and make that call together, because it might be a little more comfortable for someone who's not used to making reports of that kind, right? Unfortunately, I've made plenty of them, right? So I know exactly what they need to know as far as that. So if you're in that situation and you're uncomfortable or you're not sure what you need to do, and you want to come in, and we can make that call together. Okay. All right. Okay. Whom are you obligated to report suspicions of child abuse and neglect? So CPS or the police and your supervisor, the parent, your supervisor only, the parent and your supervisor. Right here. Okay. You are required, you're obligated to report to either CPS or the police. Okay. Either one of those covers you under the law, and the director of the program, so me. Okay, just to let me know. You do not, if you don't feel like you want to give me all the details, do not. Okay, I don't necessarily need that. I may, depending on the situation, try to have that conversation with you. All I really need to know is that you've made a report. Okay. All right, which of the following acts between an adult and a minor are considered sexual abuse? So if you look through all of these, I think, again, this one is kind of obvious, right? So all of the above. So none of these things should you do, and they all are considered sexual abuse. So sending images, watching that young person, giving them pornographic material, showing anything sexual to them, and talking about sex with them on the telephone. None of that should happen. All of that's considered abuse. Okay. Which of the following is not considered acceptable behavior for a program staff worker or volunteer? Again, this would be a kind of a obvious one, I would hope, right? So none of these things are ever appropriate, especially for a staff or a volunteer in the 4-H program. So that includes, giving the materials, telling jokes. And this one, yeah, definitely not, right? So none of these things should ever happen as part of the 4-H program. I'll admit Brittany back. She must have fallen off. Okay, as a program staff member for a program held under Purdue authority. So remember, 4-H is under the auspices of Purdue University. So all of the things fall under Purdue. We are covered by their liability. So they do have some authority to say what we can or can't do, right? So we have the responsibility for protecting minor children by behaving appropriately and monitoring others' behaviors. That is obviously true, right? So the important thing in this statement, I think, is not only by behaving appropriately and one would assume that we kind of have a pretty good idea of what that means, but also monitoring others' behaviors. So just kind of keep your eyes and ears open. That includes not only other adults, but other children as well, right? You don't want any child to feel abused in any way. So a lot of times I think our mind automatically goes to sexual abuse, but also kind of the bullying stuff, right? We don't want any child to feel like they're a victim of any kind of abusive behavior, including bullying. So keep an eye out on the other children as well. Okay, most child sexual abuse situations occur in a one adult and one child situation, and that is true. Most of the time, that's gonna be a situation if one-on-one. So that's why, as part of the 4-H program, we really want you to avoid that one adult, one child as much as possible. It's why I ask you to please have an assistant leader if you can. It's why we ask you to have more than one adult in a car if there's a transportation to an activity where you're transporting children. And if you absolutely need to have a private conversation, make sure you're in a room where you can keep the door open, or it has a window, where there's some other way another adult can kind of keep an eye on what's happening. And that's to protect you as much as it is to protect the child, right? Okay, if a one-on-one interaction is required, what can you do to reduce the risk of child sexual abuse? I just now talked a little bit about those, right? So you want to meet in an open, well-illuminated space that is observable by other adults, right? So, I mean, meeting in a university building, that might work if there's other adults there, but maybe not. And you don't want to videotape something like that. So meet in an open, well-illuminated space. Okay. When transporting, sorry, that little lisp came out there, which is the best policy? So obviously, I just talked a little bit about that. Transport with more than one adult from the program present in the vehicle. Okay. Now, if you are the parent of those children, that's a different story. If all the kids in your car are your own, obviously that's different, because that happens too. We'll have events and a parent will bring their own 3 or 4 kids. Okay. What are some of the consequences that could happen with failure to comply to the behavior guidelines? So there can be disciplinary actions, opportunity to use facilities can be revoked, and the entire program or activity may be restricted. So that's all of the above, because we will we'll take what actions that need to happen if there's any failure to comply with that. All right. So again, you guys will have this same quiz. I wanted to go through it so that I could kind of make sure you saw it, make sure we talked about it, and got my personal kind of emphasis on how important this stuff is. So does anyone have any questions or comments or additional thoughts that they want to add? All right, so we need to get out of here. Oh, for heaven's sakes, how many extra screens are there? All right, so here we go. Kind of an add-on to that minors training. Here's the abuse hotline. It's really easy to remember, and I don't remember numbers well, but I remember this one because it's just 800-800-5556. Okay, that will get you a central hotline that's answered in Indianapolis, and then they get those reports pushed back to the local office. If for some reason you need the local office, that's the phone number there. And some of you may know I am certified as a youth mental health first aid instructor as part of the extension Youth Mental Health First Aid team across the state. There are 10 of us in the state registered to teach that course. I highly recommend it, right? Mental health is very important for our young people. It's something we need to kind of stomp out a lot of the misconceptions surrounding mental health. It shouldn't be a taboo subject. A lot of our kids are dealing with a lot of stuff, right? So it's going to impact a lot of times their behavior and what kinds of things you see from them in your programs. Sometimes you may not know what's happening. You may not know what's going on, but always keep in the back of your mind there might be some stuff there. And so what Youth Mental Health First Aid does, and you've got a little flyer in your folder, and I have that flyer on the next slide as well. I'll show you. But it's really important to me, and I highly recommend that. There are currently some virtual trainings that are being offered through Extension, and so if you go to this link, you can kind of see that. Once we are fully able to go back to in-person kind of things, because typically I'll have about 20 in a class. So the social distancing and that kind of stuff is not really doable right now. But that in-person class is really valuable as well, and I love teaching it. Okay, so before I move on to anything related to minors training, any questions or comments? Okay, so club management, I mentioned 4-H Online is going to be a lot more user-friendly. So a lot of the things that will be helpful to you are going to be in this club management section. We don't have anybody that's fully through because the training wasn't working last week, so we don't have any volunteers yet that are fully through where we can show you a live demo of what the club management side looks like. But you'll each have a password. There's a how-to sheet in your folder. And you'll be able to do things like see your club rosters, email from there to your club, right? To the club members. And you'll be able to do a lot of the management stuff. So the financial stuff, that kind of thing. Emily is going to, are you going to share? Okay, Emily's going to share her screen and kind of go through a few things with you on that. Okay, while she's pulling that up, I'm going to answer Rebecca's question. Rebecca had a question in the chat that the training good for 2 years. So yes and no, Rebecca. For now, it's good for 2 years, but they tell us that that is going to change to being required annually. I don't know, because right now, as you finish the training, it still says every 2 years. So my guess is if you had it last year, you're probably still good for this year. I haven't heard any different. Do you know?
I don't know for sure yet.
Okay, so we'll let you know on that, because it is going to change to every year. But if you just had it last year, you might be good for this year. Not sure. We'll try to find out for you. Okay, so Emily is going to share. How do I get this to?
I'll just hold them up for the ones that are here.
Okay.
Because they're already in your folders.
Yeah, so those of you that are here, these forms will be in your folders. Did you get a folder? Did you get Amber a folder?
I don't have a spare one yet.
Okay. Here.
Okay. So first we have this one that if you're on the Zoom is already being shared. And it's part of the financial report that you have to turn in, that if you come into the office, we have folders that you can pick up that have them. This will be turned in with, there's another one that I have here. That's also, no, because you've already turned yours in. So you are good with these. And then for the other form is the annual financial report for the clubs that have to turn in financial. Then this would be from this year's financial reports. So covering the, 2020 financial, and we don't technically have to turn these in for at least until March or April. So you have a while to fill that one out and get it back in. And then there's also this form in there that just shows a list of what would be wise to look through and to have for this EIN number. I have all of those for all the clubs, so you don't have to worry about getting that. And it just covers rough idea of what to keep and keep track of. And then as I was looking through documents to find in years, I did find, hang on, it's not wanting to let me use it. I did find this one, and it's just a rough idea of what would be wise to do as a meeting for youth. It goes through just a couple order of like call your pledges, your roll call, talking about your minutes, just gives you a rough idea of what you could do as meetings in order.
So none of those are going to be have to things, but it just is a guide, because a lot of folks don't, if you've never led a club before, you might be wondering what kind of things you need to do.
Okay. And then I also found this 4-Hers officer duties. If anybody's working on getting new people for as president or vice president, and you don't have a rough idea of what their duties are, it gives you a breakdown of what is recommended for each position. So if for treasurer, just keep track of the checkbook and list everything that would be wise to keep track of. And we did have this form that I did put in the chat box that you can pull up, which is the club leader login if you want to have it for today. If not, it'll be in your folders. Okay.
So how do I get back to?
Okay, so we're going to move on. So if you have questions on that, just you can give us a call. You can go ahead and drop a question in the chat box if you need to, and we can get you answered. If you think of something later, give us a call or email. Okay, this is just a flyer about the mental health first aid I was talking about earlier. So it gives a link there for the website. So in your folder too, there's going to be 2 handouts. And this will be the last thing I talk about tonight. The 2 handouts are very similar. I just kind of get, one is briefer. So that's this one. The other one is 2 pages. It's front and back, but it's the same information. So 4-H ideals. So the 4-H youth development ideals are listed here. And so what you need to think of when you're working with youth in your club or your activities or programs or whatever you're doing with the youth, always try to remember these 4 key points, right? And most important is the one that's listed first on this 1-page sheet, and that's belonging. So the 4 ideals of 4-H youth development are belonging, mastery, independence, and generosity. And in my personal opinion, belonging is the most important one. We want kids to feel like they belong, that they're part of the 4-H family, that they're sort of their nuclear family, if you will, is going to be your club, right? And then the larger family Owen County 4-H. So we want them to feel like they belong here, and that's really important. So what you can do to make them feel like they belong is important. That's going to be different for different people, because we all have different talents and different ways of doing that. But the most important thing is that you're supportive, that you are that caring adult in their lives. What we hope is they have several of those people, that they have parents and extended family that are caring and supportive in their lives. But I think we all know that not all kids have that, right? So it's really important that we offer that, especially for those kids that don't have that. So volunteer leaders and club members have that fellowship during the club meeting. That's why club meetings are important. The next training I do in January, and we'll talk about it at the end, is going to be talking about making your meetings matter. And we'll delve a little deeper into how those ideals really come to life in your club meetings. But by showing interest in actively listening and all of those things that show that young person that you care about them, right? So mastery, and a lot of us really hit hard on this one, right? We talk about projects, and we talk about completing projects, and we talk about getting blue ribbons and champion ribbons and the grand champion. So this mastery ideal is a huge part of what 4-H is and has been. What I think is more important, in my opinion, is gaining that mastery is a process, right? It's not necessarily an end point. So that project that they exhibit at the fair every year is not necessarily the end of their mastery, right? And that comes in, we know there's different divisions at different levels, and they learn different things and more difficult things as they progress through each project. But I want kind of this shift in thinking to kind of occur, that we're going to focus a little more on that process and not so much on crossing some sort of finish line, right? Or obtaining some sort of trophy or ribbon or whatever. The trophies and ribbons are nice. Don't get me wrong. I do enjoy a good ribbon. But it's more about the process and the experience. And that's what we're here. We're here to help them gain skills and learn mastery of new skills through experience. So that experiential learning is what's most important there. Having a place to learn these new skills that is where it's okay for them to fail, right? Because you're not going to learn anything. You're not going to be able to do something perfectly the first time. And it needs to be okay for it to flop, right? So that makes it really important. Demonstrations in your meetings are good, because other kids can kind of show and help, and then the younger kids can get involved. The peer mentoring relationships, and I'm going to try to get my peer mentoring program off the ground again very soon, where they can teach each other, and that it's okay to not, like I said, not to reach that pinnacle the very first time out, where it's okay to, oh man, that didn't work. What are we going to do instead? To problem solve, to figure it out. So that's a part of mastery, is that process of learning it. And it needs to be a positive experience, where they feel supported when something flops, right? So they bake a cake and it isn't good. Hey, that's okay. Why isn't it good? What happened here? Let's break this down and try to figure this out and learn from that. Okay, so that's very important in that mastery ideal. Independence, which is very tied to mastery. So helping them become independent in those skills and then become a leader. I talked about those peer mentors. That's where they're starting to go, right? That independence, where now they're starting to take on that leadership. And that happens in clubs, right? So you've got club officers, you've got young people who are starting to figure out how to be a leader to other people. 4-H is one of the first places where they're going to have that experience. A lot of younger clubs, especially, we've got a lot of clubs that are very young in membership. So you might have a 12, 13, 14-year-old who is your, a club officer. They don't get that opportunity a lot of other places, because a lot of times in school, those upperclassmen are getting those, right? This is a chance for them to learn how to be that leader. So that's really important. And then generosity. So this is all about community service. And we have a lot of clubs doing a lot of great stuff. Community service. I'm so proud of what's happening in Owen County 4-H in terms of community service. I feel like we do a lot here. So I'm very proud of that. And that's a big piece of what 4-H is. So I'm not going to go through the second page with you. It's here. It's in your folder. And you guys can kind of go through those on your own. But just try to remember these 4 things in the back of your mind when you're planning your meetings or activities or things that you do, and try to incorporate the ideals of 4-H in all of those activities that you are having the kids participate in. All right, questions, comments on the 4-H ideals? Okay. All right, so we're gonna start wrapping it up. I promised that it would be an hour. I don't like meetings to go more than an hour. I think it's important to try to keep things there so that we're not losing folks, right? So I want to point out some additional training. I mentioned at the beginning here that this is one of the goals I have this year, is to provide plenty of training opportunities. Do you have to do everyone? No, you don't have to do everyone. Pick a few, though, that you find interesting and pursue them. I'm going to have some locally. There are state virtual ones, and there are a couple of other things that I want to point out. So first off, the Leadership Summit. So some of you may have gone to this before, I don't know. Leadership Summit's held every year in November. It's usually in person in Indianapolis, right? It's a day-long conference, if you will. It has various workshops and different things for leaders and youth, okay, to learn new skills to help enhance their 4-H clubs and their programs. So this year, thanks to COVID, we're going to do a hybrid virtual in person. So I am hosting here in this room here in the office on November 21st. And I believe it starts at 9. Does it say on there? I think it's like 9 to 3 or 9 to 4. Do you remember? And I've pushed out some information about it already, and I'll be doing that more along the way. But if you are interested in that, that will be here on that day. We'll do some webinar stuff, and we'll do some in-person stuff. They're going to send me materials so that we can interact with an in-person group as well as follow what's happening through the webinar. The big neat thing about the Leadership Summit, every year this happens, but the luncheon portion, so at lunchtime, there's a volunteer recognition for tenured volunteers. So anyone this year with 50 or more years of service to 4-H. And I am proud to say that Owen County has 2 this year, the 50-year volunteers. So we're going to honor them, as well as we're going to honor Nina for retiring after 27 years. So we'll have a little ceremony at lunch here, and lunch is included. So if you want to come, I will get lunch for you. Okay. So keep an eye out for that, and we'll have you just call in to register for that. So that'll be a kind of a fun day. And that's a Saturday, by the way. Something new that some educators, some of my cohorts are doing, they started a 4-H podcast. So the link is there for that podcast. There's only been one so far, so we've got October under our belt, and that's a nice interview with Dr. Casey Mull. Dr. Mull is the new program 4-H program leader in the state. Dr. Mull started April 1st, so if you can imagine starting a brand new career in a brand new state. He moved here from Atlanta in the middle of a lockdown. I mean, we were hot and heavy locked down on April 1st, and he was having to move and start a whole new career and try to meet, 92 4-H educators in the state and interact with us in some sort of meaningful way. And I will tell you one thing, I'm very impressed with Dr. Mall. He's awesome. And a lot of my colleagues feel the same. We're very happy that Indiana has Dr. Mall kind of steering the ship of Indiana 4-H. Another resource for you as a volunteer is the National 4-H Foundation, and I put the link here. There are lots of things, all kinds of curriculum, all kinds of activity ideas, all kinds of stuff. They do have like a store where you can buy stuff, but the most valuable thing for you is going to be the stuff you can get on here for free. Okay, so you can go here and find different things that maybe can enhance. You might not find something that you like, but I find something every time I go that really interests me. And then this is the flyer for the virtual cafe series that the state office is doing. There was one already in September on the essential elements. And so this week, actually, Thursday, is that Thursday? Is the 29th Thursday? Right. They're doing one on healthy living. The thing about these, all of these are things that you could incorporate in a club meeting, for instance. So if you are interested in incorporating something on healthy living in your club meeting, go to the, hop on the Zoom on Thursday for that. So that link is there. If you need more information or you need me to send it to you in an email or something, let me know. Okay. Questions on those opportunities? Okay. All right, so before I talk a little bit about what's happening next time, there is a survey. I don't know if you guys have a phone where you can access this survey and just take it real quick, but there is a link here, and I'm gonna see, can you grab that link and put it in the chat for people? Is there a way for you to do that? Okay. So if you don't mind, and the nice thing about that little QR code is you literally can take your phone and do one of those and it takes you to it. So if you want to do that. I had a, oh, which reminds me, while we're hopefully getting some people to fill out the survey. So I did this similar thing in my last workshop with the juniors and seniors that I'm doing for kids that are looking for education opportunities after high school. And I had a nice peppering of different sort of techie things, and they kind of got into it. So that was kind of cool. So they kind of like the QR codes. It's kind of fun. Awesome. Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I'm probably gonna wrap up because it's almost 7. I don't want to keep people longer than that. We can stay on if anybody's interested. Okay. So if you haven't yet, try to get that survey filled out. It helps me on my data, and the collecting data for me is not my favorite piece, but yes, they've convinced me it is important. So if you can do that for me, if not now, sometime soon. Okay, so next time, I mentioned I'm going to try to do 3 or 4 trainings throughout the year. The next one will be January 21st at 6. We'll be right here again, and it's going to be entitled Make Meetings Matter. So especially if you have a general club, this is going to be really important. And if you're a club leader, bring your club officers, bring your youth with you to this one. Because there's going to be a lot of stuff, and I cannot take credit for it. I got sort of the outline for this training from University of Ohio, I believe. Is that what I said? Ohio State. Ohio. It's next door, right? And when I saw the outline and all of the resources they had, I was like, there is no need for me to create my own because this has everything I wanted it to have. It's got great information. This is just a teaser. This is one of the pieces directly from the presentation that we'll be talking about why youth come to club meetings. So if you are having a hard time getting your kids to club meetings, think about these things. They come when they're having fun. They come when they can be with friends or make new friends. They come when they can learn new things. They come when they're given choices, right? When they have some voice in what's happening, they're going to be more apt to come. And when they're empowered to make those group decisions. So learning how to involve the whole group in making a decision on what's happening. And that can be tricky sometimes, right? We have all had that experience where we have the kid in the corner who doesn't want to say anything because they're just as shy as can be. How do you draw that kid in? You know, how do you make sure his voice is heard or her voice is heard? And we also had the kid who answers everything, wants to have, you know, is not afraid to talk. So it's the opposite. How do you encourage that kid to continue to be involved, but allow others to be involved as well? And then they're going to come to your meetings if they feel like they can make a difference and provide service. So all of those community service things that our clubs do, a lot of times end up having higher attendance because they're doing something that's meaningful to them in service. All right, it's 7 o'clock on the dot. I promised an hour, I delivered. What questions before we go off of here? Anybody have questions about any of the things we've talked about, or comments, or even like randomness you want to ask me? I need to stop sharing and come back.
I do have a question, Jennifer.
Okay.
What are our parameters right now for meeting? Where are we allowed to meet? How are we allowed to meet? What are we allowed to do?
That's a really good question. So I sent out early in the COVID times. I don't even know what to call this, right? Just this crazy world we're in right now. A safety plan template. So clubs can meet as long as they have an approved safety plan. So how that works, and I will send it again, because what needs to happen is any safety plan, this is really important. Any safety plan needs to come through me. Do not send it directly to campus. Comes through me. That allows me to take a look at it and help you make any changes that might need to be changed. I'm really happy to say that of everything we have submitted so far that I've gotten back, we haven't had anything not approved. Everything's been approved, right? So I can even give you some samples, Jenny, of safety plans that have been approved so you kind of can understand. So the basic thing they're looking for is maintaining that proper social distance, that kind of thing. Things have eased up since these safety plans first came out in, I don't know, April or whenever, but they're still required. The state, you know, the governor has said we're still under a mask mandate. We've got I haven't been wearing one in here because I have my tables set up in social distancing. So if people are in place and aren't going to move around, I'm okay with that. But if you're going to have kids that are up and moving around and might not be able to keep that social distancing the entire time, then we want them to have the masks on. When you're outside, sometimes that is a different story as well, because they tell us that being outside is not as risky as being in an enclosed space. But it's coming on winter, and so outside is going to be getting out of the question soon. So yes, so we do have clubs that are meeting, doing activities and doing different things with approved plans. So I'll make sure, if you can't find that, I'll make sure to send you. Can you jot that down for me to send Jenny a safety plan template? That's a very good question. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. excellent. And I'm going to see here. Okay, so Emily's put some stuff in the chat room. So she put the link to the survey there, so you can grab that if you want. Once I close the Zoom, you won't have access to that, but it is being recorded. So I don't know if you can get to the chat though. So you might want to grab it, just copy and paste that into like a document or something, and so you have it. Okay, so I think, will the documents populate after we officially enroll? I don't see. Oh, so Emily already answered that for you. Okay. Okay, so I think we've answered everything that I see. So unless you guys on here have anything, I'm done with what I had to present. I think Emily, you were able to get to some of the stuff on 4-H Online. Do you want to stick around and see if anybody wants? Okay. We're going to keep the Zoom open for a little bit. I'm done with what I had. If you want to stick around and have Emily show you a few things on 4-H Online, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, have a good evening, and hey, I'll be talking to you soon. Thanks so much.